the Gordon I knew in high school was the same Gordon I knew later in life. A mild presence, but he still was sure about who he was, what he was to do, and he did it. And he spent his lifetime helping kids that needed help, that he was trying to find ways to help. And in a sense, the last 20 years I've been trying to do the same thing. I've always honored him, and I wish I'd seen more of him in his last 10, 20 years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Could you tell us the story of
Here.
the war?
War story.
War
Pardon?
story.
Ewald.
I don't have any more stories.
Oh, okay. Well, the rumor was that they went gallivanting in Paris.
So you were in a wheat field,
In Austria.
otherwise a slaughterhouse in Austria. You were in a wheat field or slaughterhouse in Austria. Dad was in Paris. You went AWOL. Remember?
Yeah,
Ewald, AWOL.
yeah,
Tell that.
that's my story. That's not his story.
Oh, okay, good point. All right. Joe's turn.
Well, you know, a gathering like this is so nice because during this, I just start reminiscing. I've been in this family for over 40 years now. Half of these people, I don't think were here when I came into this family. And, you know, 2/3 of my life so far. So going back, and I get all these visions of Gordon doing this and doing that, and somehow the two that have just stuck out is one of them when we were Margaret and Gordon had come down to visit us on the Cape, and I don't think Margaret came along, but Gordon came out on my boat fishing. And we had a wonderful, it was a beautiful day. The boys were along, and we started heading home, and we're coming up Vineyard Sound, going by the Elizabeth Islands. Beautiful day. And another boat came up kind of right next to us and just going along. So I decided it was time to sort of race him a little bit. And I nailed it. Off went Gordon. He didn't fall overboard. He fell down on the boat. And I felt like an idiot. But the more memorable one was when we were first living here. We were living in the barn, and it was a Sunday morning, and I had, thanks to Daniel, just taken up soccer, which became a passion, but at that time. And I came back from one of these Sunday morning soccer games, and there was Margaret in the barn, and she had a look on her face. She didn't have to say a thing. I knew that pregnant Ellen was ready to go. And Gordon brought the car down, the old station wagon. And we climbed in the back, and it seems like it was like a ride in the Indianapolis Speedway with Gordon driving us up to Goodfield to the hospital. I kind of have a vision of him smoking that pipe, but I don't think that. Anyway, I just thought I would share those two visions. There's so many more in the 40 years, but it's nice to have nice, pleasant ones like that.
I also remember him, the way he would turn into the driveway. He'd always do it on a skid.
And then cut the engine to see if he could
Then
roll
cut
all the
the
way
en-
into the garage.
See if he could do that without hitting the post.
That's not the grandpa I knew.
I feel a great heaviness sitting with the loss of Grandpa, but I also feel so lucky to be a part of this whole big swirl of traditions that he originated. I like to think that we all sort of have a moment of inertia from him playing She'll Be Coming Round the Mountain and all of us running around in circles all around the piano. I sort of feel like we're all spinning all the time, and he started that off. As a kid, I loved playing in Grandpa's study. It was this place that was kind of the most sacred space I had ever been in. It was the first do not disturb sign that I've ever seen in my life. It was where Ben and Sherry had their traditional Iranian wedding ceremony, and there were all of these candies that were scattered around. And I remember Jake and I, like 5 years old at the time, for hours after, finding every last candy so that we could eat it, which is sort of also part of our heritage, not wasting anything.
I brought the money for you.
But most importantly, it was where he would read to us from the Bible at Christmas and then from Grimm's fairy tales year-round. And in this book of the Grimm's fairy tales, there were all of these pictures that our parents' generation had drawn, and then we got to draw our own pictures. And I've learned that my interpretation of a story was an important thing, and I learned to appreciate other people's interpretations of stories as well. And I think through his house and his work and his family, Gordon created something that's larger than himself. Even in his later years when he developed Alzheimer's, he had this way of going with the flow. And just one thing that a lot of us remember from when we made a movie about cats. And there was one scene in the attic where there were all these cats dressed up, and Grandpa was supposed to come up the stairs and kill all the cats. And he bopped them all in the head. And then all of a sudden he said, "I seem to be in the middle of some sort of strange plot." Which was true, because we had written a strange plot based on Nick's dreams, but also because he was in the middle of a strange plot, especially at the end, but also throughout life. And I think no one else was more well equipped to handle something as hard as Alzheimer's disease. I just wanted to read this thing. It was written recently by the neurologist Oliver Sacks upon his diagnosis of terminal cancer. He said, "My generation is on its way out, and each death I have felt is an abruption, a tearing away of part of myself. There will be no one like us when we are gone, but then there is no one like anyone else ever. When people die, they cannot be replaced. They leave holes that cannot be filled, for it is the fate, the genetic and neural fate of every human being to be a unique individual, to find his own path, to live his own life, to die his own death. Above all, I have been a sentient being, a thinking animal on this beautiful planet, and that in itself has been an enormous privilege and adventure."